Democrats are in a GOP shutdown vice. This is reported by Politico. Republicans are ratcheting up pressure on Democrats on multiple fronts as the government shutdown enters a third work week, hoping hardball moves can force a reckoning that cracks the stalemate. The moves come even as President Donald Trump took a major pressure point off the table over the weekend, announcing he would shift money around to ensure military members don't miss a paycheck Wednesday. But Republicans on both ends of Pennsylvania Avenue have sprung into action with other tactics. At the White House, Budget Director Russ Vought announced substantial layoffs Friday, finally making good on 2 weeks of threats. On Capitol Hill, Senate Republicans said they would no longer allow Democrats to keep calling up their own stopgap spending bill funding the government through the end of October, forcing votes only on the GOP-led alternative. Speaker Mike Johnson is continuing to keep the House out of session this week, and he argues Democrats will bear the consequences of closed agencies and most federal workers continuing to miss paychecks. I kind of think when they're down to a binary choice, they are more likely to vote yes, Senate Kevin Cramer of North Dakota said about the shift in strategy. But he acknowledged that the obvious immediate leverage point would have been troop pay, adding if anything was going to be an inflection point, it was that, because it was a compelling reason to open the damn government. The GOP effort to force Democrats to heel comes as talks between the top 4 congressional leaders remained virtually non-existent, and there's no sign that rank-and-file Senate Democrats, just 5 of whom could quickly end the shutdown, are ready to flip ahead of another scheduled vote on the House-passed stopgap Tuesday night. While troops are no longer in danger of missing their Wednesday paychecks, other pain points are looming. The federal courts, for instance, could scale back operations after Friday, and air travel impacts are being closely watched. But Democrats are looking at another day they believe will be the ultimate pressure point: the November 1 launch of open enrollment for Affordable Care Act insurance plans. The party has sought to make the pending expiration of premium tax credits a central issue in the standoff, demanding Republicans cut a deal to extend them. The closer to November 1, a lot of these elected officials are going to start hearing from their constituents, said Senator Ruben Gallego, president of Arizona, when asked what he thinks will break the impasse. The fear that the shutdown is pitting the unstoppable force of Democratic anger at Trump versus the immovable objects of GOP resolve not to flinch has not yet generated any substantive bipartisan negotiations. While Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries believe the only way out of the shutdown is for their GOP counterparts in Trump to talk to them, Republicans are making it clear that they don't see the point right now and are counting on rank-and-file Democrats to pressure their own party brass. I think Leader Schumer has checked out, Senate Minority Leader John Thune told reporters Friday, adding that Republicans were looking for bold, courageous Democrats with a backbone. Thune mentioned the shutdown's impact on air travel, saying it was one way senators might start to feel that a little bit personally. Senator Dick Durbin, the number 2 Senate Democrat, separately noted last week how air traffic controllers were a driving factor in the last shutdown. But if the Trump administration thought Friday's firings of several thousand federal workers would break the impasse, it instead appears to have only stiffened Hill Democrats' spines to keep the shutdown going. We will not be threatened and intimidated by the likes of Russ Vought, Purple District Rep Mike Levin told reporters Friday. Jeffries is calling House Democrats back to Washington for a Tuesday evening caucus meeting, and Democratic lawmakers are expected to take part in more public appearances this week, even as the House stays out of session. He and Schumer have largely managed to keep their caucuses unified on the demand for a bipartisan negotiation, even though there are already clear signs of fissures between the 2 Democratic leaders over what would be an acceptable end to the shutdown. The American people want it. They are seeing how devastating this is, and they are putting a lot of pressure on the Republican congressmen and senators, Schumer said, when asked why he believes Republicans will change their minds on health care, insisting that GOP senators were feeling the heat. Democrats are also trying to drive a wedge between GOP leaders and the White House. Schumer has pointed to Johnson, who is wary of extending the insurance subsidies, as the real roadblock. And Durbin, asked about Thune, noted he had known and worked with the genial South Dakotan for years, but he is at the mercy of a president who is mercurial. Republican leaders, however, have shown no signs they will back down from their view that any deal on extending the expiring tax credits can't be forged while the government is closed. Instead, they are trying to peel off another 5 Senate Democrats by dangling an offer to talk once the shutdown is over. There are some Democrats who I think are reasonable enough to know that this is not a sustainable position for them, Thune said. The bipartisan talks among the Senate rank and file are ongoing, but have so far failed to bear fruit. Republican leaders floated an offer to potentially hold a vote on extending the subsidies, but Democrats involved in the talks said the details were too fuzzy to agree. Senator Susan Collins of Maine is separately floating a 6-point plan to Democrats, which would involve a similar commitment on health care, plus moving full-year government funding bills. Even though the group hasn't yet come up with a deal, aides believe the rapid launching of trial balloons late last week was a good sign. Eventually, they reckon one of them will take off and get Congress out of the shutdown. But the other risk Republicans are starting to warn is that the standoff could go on for so long, they might need to extend the window for reaching a broader deal on federal spending and the insurance subsidies. The House-approved bill expires on November 21, just before Thanksgiving. Now some in the GOP are floating dates just before Christmas, and top party leaders are discussing that possibility. Democrats, meanwhile, want a shorter window for action, before the November 1 open enrollment date. Senator Mark McWellen, the Oklahoma Republican whom White House officials have tapped to coordinate informal talks with Democrats, has said he has floated the later, pre-Christmas deadline in hopes of breaking something loose. You start with A, B, C, and you probably end up at D. And I think right now we're probably somewhere around B.